I'll open the meeting. This is the Budget Committee meeting. My name's Councillor Greg Sayers. I'm the Chair. This is a committee of the whole. We'll just go through the protocols of absences and declarations and electronic attendance. So, first of all, I've got some apologies. Apologies from Angela Dalton and Tony Kate, and lateness from Al Filipina, Mike Lee, Richard Hills, who's currently on council business, and Christine Fletcher, so we can expect them a little bit later in the meeting. Are there any more apologies? If not, could I have a mover for that? Yep. Thank you. Put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you for that. Okay, just for those who need to attend via electronic link, we just need to approve that. I've got Councillor Foley and Councillor Al Filipina both needing to attend on the electronic link today. Are there any others? No, that's all. So I'll put that. Could I have a mover for that, for their attendance? Be here, Desley. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Henderson. All those in favour? Against? So that's carried, so welcome. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest to do with any of the agenda items today? Yeah, we have an interested councillor. Very good, thank you. No petitions today? Thank you. And no local board input today? Very good. Extraordinary business. There being none, we'll go on to the first substantive item, which is on your agenda, councillors, is item number 7. Now, just before we kick into the item, gentlemen, I'm going to ask the supporting officer here, our Chief Finance Officer, Ross Tucker, just to make some introductory comments, which I think could be helpful in terms of censoring Ross and helpful to the councillors and ISB members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'll just talk a bit about the annual budget process, and then I'll hand over to the team that will take you through the overview to decision-making report. Perhaps just before I start, just sort of one reminder, as you'll all be aware, just in relation to the Auckland Airport shares, there's a trading halt at the moment. You've all been sort of advised on that. Our strong advice is that while that process is underway, trading hold in place, that you refrain from making public comments, and just bear in mind this is a public meeting. So yeah, just a reminder to our advice is not make public comments around that process. There'll be updates from the Auckland Future Fund in due course. In terms of the annual budget process, as I said, the team will take you through it. The terms of reference for this committee are all related to all things annual budget, including deciding on the items for consultation, the approving the consultation document, etc. The way that we've kind of run this process from the beginning has been a little bit broader than that. As the team will talk about, there's a range of different decisions that you might need to consider, this year. What we've done is have one set of strategic discussions where we've kind of got your views on what key changes for the year. Some of those things relate to the annual budget, some of them don't. But we've kind of run it as one process rather than have 2 or 3 different streams of work go on. We've kind of run a process where we've kind of got your views on what are the key things you want to see changing. What is the advice that you need. We've brought forward advice on a range of matters, and now we have a mayoral proposal. But this is where things start to diverge. Some things will go through the formal annual budget process, other things will go through other channels. And importantly, a key element of that, the CCO review work, that's CCO reform work that's underway, and where proposals have been made, that fits under the decision making of the governing body. So certain things will go there. So while it's been one process to date, one mayoral proposal, now the processes start to diverge. That was always intended. we're going to do the work, give the advice, and then send things down the appropriate process pathway. So I'll hand over to Michael and Tristan to just talk a little bit about that. And I've got a couple of slides just to make that as clear as possible, just so we're kind of knowing, what are the process steps and where do different decisions go.
Okay, just before we do that, thank you for that, Ross. I guess what I've taken away from that is particularly, I know we're on item 7, but in item 9, when we discuss the actual mayoral proposal, it's, in terms of discussing the CCO reform, amendments, debate, questions, that's for next week. It'll be moved to next week rather than today.
Yes, so next week there'll be an item, the governing body around CCO reform. So that's the place for questions, debate, decisions are based off that item. Okay. So the items we're going to discuss today, as Mike will step through, are basically everything else other than the things in that sort of CCO reform space.
Right, so and Ross, while I've got you on a roll, I'd like to get this live for the debate and find a mover and seconder for the motion that's up there. So councillors may be wondering why B's crossed out, and that's probably relevant to what you've been talking about.
Yes, so item B is as part of the process we're working through here. That item B relates to the time frame for the statement of intent process, which is around CCOs, which actually relates more to the CCO reform decisions, CCO discussions that are going to happen in governing body. It doesn't really relate to the annual plan process itself. So in terms of staff reviewing that, where does that sort of sit? Where should the delegation be? That should really go straight to governing body. So that will be something that is worked through and at the appropriate governing body meeting as part of the SOI process. So it's not a decision that the budget committee needs to be making today. That's all it is. So it's kind of we'll withdraw that particular recommendation and just leave you with the 2 other ones. All
right, thank you for that. And just to remind councillors, the purpose of this agenda item is to provide an overview of the annual plan, as you've just said, Ross, on the process to date, outline the decisions required at today's budget committee meeting, which you've done, and inform the next steps of progress to finalise the annual plan, which, Michael, you'll take us through shortly. So just before that, I'll just ask if anybody would like to move the current motion or recommendation. Thank you, Desley. Councillor Simpson. Do we have a seconder? Oh, yes. Yeah, okay. Councillor Baker, thank you very much. Very good. Thank you. I hope that's helpful, councillors, as an introduction for today. So I hand over to you, Mr. Burns. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and kia ora, members. We'll take the report as read and just look to highlight a few key things. The first one I had was the removal of the second recommendation that we've just discussed. Secondly, the Audit and Risk Committee considered the annual budget process, risks and the risk management approach yesterday and resolved to advise you that an appropriate approach has been taken to managing those risks. So that's second thing. And then the third piece is just to flesh out, I suppose, a bit of the process piece that Ross has talked about how we get from, here we are. So just to talk through our annual plan process. So Mayor and Councillor direction document that looked to the areas of focus for the next year was issued back in August and kicked off through this annual plan process. In response to that, a number of workshops, briefings and advice papers came through the Budget Committee and through workshops of the Budget Committee, and those have informed the mayoral proposal. So that process has worked its way through the Budget Committee, but now that those things have been firmed up, that advice has been reflected or taken on board as the mayor's prepared his proposal, then we need to ensure that the appropriate decisions are made in the appropriate places. And so this is where we get the divergence between those decisions that need to be made today and those that are more appropriate to be made next week at the governing body. So those that will be made today will be around items for consultation for the annual plan. and they will flow through to the consultation document. Once those decisions are made, our staff will go away, as we do, prepare consultation material, and bring that back to you for adoption in February. And then we'll go out and discuss those issues with the people of Auckland through February and March. This second slide, and this is the only other slide, just quickly identifies what those issues are. So the issues today will be around agreeing to consult, proposed recommendations are agreeing to consult on the funding of destination marketing and events, and that's around supporting in principle the bed night visitor levy, around agreeing principles, direction, and looking for further advice on group shared services, and then also Andrew Duncan will seek your agreement to consult on updates to a variety of targeted rates and fees and charges as we do every year and required to. Those issues that will flow through to the governing body next week will be those items around CCO reform, and then also agreeing to the draft Te Puna Maunga Authority operational plan, and those will come through to the governing body next week. So I think that kind of lays out the process and looks to help work out which decisions will be made when. So other than that, take the rest of the report as read and stand by for questions.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any questions, councillors? No, there being none? Okay, thank you, Councillor Watson.
Yeah, so just in terms of the process forward and differentiating between today and next week, Michael, just so you said the items, this essentially decides items for consultation. So obviously, if people have got questions about what should or shouldn't be consulted upon, then today's the appropriate venue for that, isn't it? If it's to do with items for consultation.
Yes, today is the day where we set what will be consulted on and decisions made.
Okay.
So just for clarity, Michael, there, because I'm just don't want to be confused as the chair, if those consultations was to do with CCO reform, for example, is today the appropriate time for that, or is next week the appropriate time for that discussion when we've seen the modified proposal, I guess?
To talk about that, so we haven't seen the proposal yet on the CCO reform. Today we're asking you to make decisions on what the proposal in front of you around consultation on these budget items. That doesn't preclude the governing body making whatever decision it wants to make about any other consultation, either as part of or alongside our annual budget. So decisions today don't necessarily prejudice anything the governing body might decide next week.
So what you're saying, that if people want to push for other items to be in, then that happens next week? Yes, that can happen next week, because obviously that's a concern. And despite the fact this is about the mayoral proposal, which a big chunk of it is to do with CCO reform, you're not wanting any of that discussed today then? Is that it?
Yeah, so the intention is to discuss the CCO reform next week when you have the final mayoral proposal, you have advice, recommendations in front of you, you can make decisions around consultation. Any sort of other budget items, today is the appropriate time to consider those.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor, that helped. That's helpful. Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Chair. Just for the CCO reform report on the 12th, there's been some pretty dense material that has gone through workshops to help inform that decision. I just want to have confirmation that the report, at least the attachments to the report, will contain all that information to ensure that that information that informs our decision becomes completely public-facing.
So that information's already public in that it was attached to the draft mayoral proposal that was released last week. So the advice to the mayor on CCO reform was included alongside our staff advice on budget matters and other matters in attachments to the draft mayoral proposal, and I expect it will be attached to the final that goes for next week.
Okay, and then any subsequent information that might come in, and that might be correspondence from, I don't know, the chair of a CCO to the chief executive or the mayor or councillors generally. I'm not expecting individual emails to councillors. I just want to make sure that all of that information is daylighted, and we are aware of it. My second question is, will the report address, at this stage, there's a lack of an implementation plan. So we've got this concept of CCO reform that has to go through a big gateway to implementation, and that's the structure of an implementation plan, which is absent at the moment. And in my eyes, I'm struggling with large parts of the CCO reform because I can't see how it converts to the new reality. So how is this final report going to satisfy the members here on the December 12th to give them confidence that there is a pathway to implementation? What might that part of the report cover to give us a sense of comfort about implementation?
So I'm just getting advice here. So yes, information on implementation will come to the 12th based on workshop discussions last week. And so that will come through as an attachment to the mayoral proposal.
And will that address, will there be a risk profile on the CCO reform? There is one on the CCO reform concept. Will there be a risk profile, or actually my request is that there's a risk profile on the discussion around implementation. And that might be lack of momentum in delivering projects, the loss of talent as the so-called lift and shift happens, if that was to be the direction, the loss of expertise of, say, directors that are specific in their unique knowledge categories, and the capacity of this elected body to pick up that work, because there is an expectation that this body picks up the work. So I'd really like to get a sense of the capacity and the expertise that is then going to be relied upon to do the work better, because we're not talking about doing the same, we're talking about a dramatic improvement. That's the expectation of the reform. So I'm wanting to see conveyed to this group on the 12th a sense that political capacity as governors, management capacity in their task in picking up the CCO transfers is going to be reliable, and that we're not going to lose pace.
Kia ora, Councillor. Through the Chair, I'm happy to answer that. Councillor Darby, thank you. We have heard that. And we also heard that in the workshop that we held last week as well, and similar themes. So the intention is to provide that level of advice. We've also said to you that it won't be a full implementation plan. There will be options because there are all sorts of permutations on this. We hear that. We will provide that. There'll be an opportunity to discuss that, and hopefully that will help in your decision on the 12th.
Thanks, Chris. I've got Councillor Turner, followed by Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, all the stuff I've read, I'm still a little confused about group shared services, and also with yesterday's announcements and stuff about things to do with Auckland Transport. And there has been some concern from certainly Watercare. I know they've been talking behind the scenes, but just the group shared services, I really just want to air that here. That sits you know, where does that sit? What are the savings we're expecting, and what's the level of engagement that we expect the CCOs to buy into? How's it going to work now with all these reforms?
Yep, so CCO, the shared service bit is part of the meal proposal, so that will be covered in the later item today. There's recommendations there that talks about, direction there around shared services, and there's direction to the Chief Executive to get on with moving ahead with some of that stuff. There's an existing group shared services board, so it's about moving ahead with what's there, with a bit of extra pace and urgency. Broader discussions around transport, I think will come a bit later as part of next week.
Thank you. I'll wait till then. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. If you want to ask again when we get to item 9, you're welcome to ask further questions on that. Daniel.
Good morning, Chair, and sorry for my late arrival, but a couple of things from me, if I may. Can I just understand when we can expect I know that we got the paper on the 12th with respect to CCO reform. I presume that paper is either written or close to being written. I know that we have a standard time for when we receive the report, but I'm just wondering if there's any chance that we may be able to receive that report earlier, if it is ready, or how early could we receive the first draft of that advice?
Through the chair. The agenda will go out for the 12th of December meeting on Monday. At this stage, I believe that will include the mayoral proposal, but we will advise you if that comes at any different time, but that's as I understand it.
Okay. I don't want to presuppose what letters we may be receiving from boards. I mean, if I may, Chair, I actually think through you, if you could have a conversation with the Mayor, probably the advice that I'd want to receive from particularly board chairs of the CCOs is if they feel that they have the confidence to continue in that role, and if they don't, I think we need advice about that, because it probably requires those people to make a decision early and to advise us as to whether they will participate in that transitional process. So if you could talk to the Mayor about that. Can I just Chair, I don't presume that everybody's going to agree with the scope of this on the 12th, nor necessarily be satisfied with all the information. I am presuming beyond the 12th of December, if there is a decision with respect to CCO reform, there will be subsequent information that will have to be provided in the form of report updates about the transitional arrangements over probably the next 12 months. Will that be reported to the Budget Committee or to the governing body? Do you know?
Through the chair, that's a good question. I would suspect, but would leave that, I think, with the Mayor to discuss with colleagues, but I would expect probably with the governing body, because it relates to the CCO reform as opposed to budget, because budget is predominantly around financial spend, and the CCO reform is bigger and wider than that. So that would be my recommendation. Yep.
Okay, well, my final two comments, Chair, I think that's fine, but I do think that there will have to be some discussion as to how could I have a degree of oversight of that as well. They'll probably have an interest there, although they can speak for themselves on that. And if I may, Chair, I do think that, and today, but also next week, if you can speak to the Mayor for next week's meeting as well, I think that notwithstanding standing orders, there is going to have to be a real effort to ensure that any colleague who wants to speak on these matters is able to do so. Clearly, these are contentious issues, and I would like to listen to all views on this matter, and I think that we should make every effort to ensure that that is accommodated. Notwithstanding if people are frustrated with the advice, I think that there are views and I'm certainly happy to listen to the views of people for whom I don't agree with their view, but I think they should be able to have their say. So if you could discuss that with the Mayor, I would be very grateful. Thank you.
I thank you, Councillor, and obviously the Mayor's sitting here listening to you as well. And I understand what you're asking in terms of the chairmanship of that meeting, Daniel. Yeah. There are no further questions. So, there is one. Sorry, gentlemen. Yep, Councillor Walker.
I understand that the CCO reform is not going to be discussed today, but having said that, some matters around it have come up. So one of the expectations that I have is that there will be adequate options presented to us around, retaining expertise, for example, as much and all as you might lose a board on a CCO. That doesn't mean to say that there can't be some form of advisory board, such as for the art gallery or the zoo, or that might be customised and may actually have a higher degree of expertise and competency than might exist now. So I would hope that those sorts of options are canvassed, so that we're not unaware of them.
Through the chair, absolutely. Yes, we will, and there will be.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you very much. There are no further questions, so thank you, gentlemen. You can step back from the table in case there's some debate or comments about the item. I have let it, even though this was a note just for staff, senior staff in the room, I have let the questions go beyond just the process presentation, because I felt councillors had some very important questions they wanted to just outline early on. They're probably more appropriate, perhaps now as good as any. So, yeah, thank you, councillors, for your participation around that.
Are you going to move that, or is it
So it's been moved and seconded. Yeah.
Can I just
Yep, we're going into that now.
Can I just make a quick comment then? I won't repeat what I've just said, which is largely questions, but probably my further question, and I'd like to see this come through in the 12th December report. There is an expectation that this body is going to be doing a lot more, and management are going to be doing a lot more. So one of the things I've not asked in the past, but I ask now for the report, is an understanding of what is the health of the core Auckland Council. You know, how healthy is it in terms of staff engagement feedback to actually undertake, to receive this transfer? I think that's a pretty fundamental thing that we need to understand. Can this structure receive such a considerable change in its form? Because the council core form changes dramatically. So is this core council management structure healthy? Now, we can see that through a number of surveys, and I'd like to see how healthy this organisation is compared with, say, Tātaki or Ekapanuku or Auckland Transport through their surveys. You know, where is the health? This is the receiving body. It is going to have to be fit and ready, really fit and ready. Otherwise, the city is at risk of coming to a grinding halt. That's the bare bone fact of it. So I'd like to see that conveyed in the report writing as well. How healthy are we? Both, and that's politically and at a management level as well, because both sides, political governance and Auckland Council management, are going to have to be up and running on this very, very quickly.
Okay, Chris, they've acknowledged that. I've had some feedback from the local boards too around their one, I don't know if it's too early or at some stage, but I'll just express it now because it's been expressed to me in my role as chair, around how local boards, if they're delegated more responsibility, more accountability and more time, has any thought, will any thought be given to extra time or extra remuneration, or making some of those roles full-time, or paying on merit above and beyond basic core duties? That type of discussion will come out from the local boards at some time, so we probably need to be prepared for that. Chair David.
O kanu te mihi ki aku e, Mr. Chairman, kanu te mihi ki aku te tēnei wā. I just want to make some comments now the questions are finished, but without stating the obvious, considering we're talking about decision making, in particular for myself and Deputy Chair for Haukura, this is the only forum we have to participate in decision making, because the matter will go to GB on the 12th, and I guess the question in my mind was just more of a comment than a question, is how will this committee or the GB take into consideration the way we vote today? Will that be given any recognition whatsoever, or are we just here to fill the gap today? So that's on my mind, right? We would have hoped that, like the CCO review, we were offered a seat at the table for the GB, and I was offered a vote. So that has happened before, but whether that can happen again, well, that's entirely up to you. I guess we'll look forward to what happens through the course of today and next Thursday. But one thing I'm not naive about is there won't be final decisions come 12 December. Every annual plan waits till May, if I got it right. That's when final decisions are made. And that's when you all kind of find at the end other people want other things at the last minute. And that's just my own opinion from what I've seen over the years. So I'm not a fool to think today or the 12th is the final decision making what goes out in the annual plan for the 25 year. But again, I just want to reiterate, because we have only got this chance today, that we hope that you will all consider what we have to say or vote on and the way we vote and how that might apply to you when you vote. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, David. Are there any other comments? Yep.
Actually, I'd just like to respond to what the Chair of Te Hikura has raised. It kind of is unfortunate that the situation sets up that you don't get a vote on the GV, but I'd certainly like to have you speaking next week. It's really important. One of the core things of this council is that we do make use of the voice that Maori are given here at the table. And so, in fact, I would, I don't know what the legal situation is, but I mean, I would like to see that GV at least listens to Te Hikura, if not allows them to vote. They're an important part of the council. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Your Worship. All right. All right. Wayne.
Sure. Just speaking to the budget component for tourism and business events, major events, investment and the like. I mean,
Wayne, I'm just looking at the item here. Do you want to save that for item 9 rather than item 7? This is just a process update on the process.
Happy to do that.
That's probably, yeah, be better to pitch it then. Yeah. Right. On that note, I'll just put the motion, please, on voices. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Item 8.